So hello everyone, how's everyone today? This is the first time I've moderated, so take it easy on me. I'm gonna have my phone open for the questions, right? So we're gonna go through the entire panel. First, introduce yourselves, and then the questions. They answer the question, they introduce yourself, then you answer, and then we continue forward. And then we have some follow-up questions, but I'd like everyone in the panel to participate because we all are in the Martech, Adtech, we all know what we're doing. So it'll be great if we all just budge into, like if you have something to say, pick up the mic, we can do it, all right? I guess we're gonna start with you. Let's see, I guess. All right. So this is a question that's important for everyone, and we all love to hear more about this because it's very important. And how do you make sure automation and measurement tools don't mislead you and that the decisions that they tell you to make align with reality?
Great question, Ihab. Thank you for that. And I'd like to say that nowadays, really, there are plenty of different solutions and tools which basically claim to be to help you to find very important answers to your questions, like to scale, for example, to stop investments, to increase investments, or to change the strategy, and etc. Some of them are incrementality tests, conversion lift studies, and others, just to name a few, for example, bidding automated strategies. But the fact is, sometimes they produce outputs which simply don't match the reality. For example, one of our clients, for him, we conducted a conversion lift study on an advertising platform, and it was zero incrementality, zero effect, so stop investments because you're burning the money. But that was very weird because it was a relatively new brand in the market. There was almost zero knowledge about that, almost no organic to be cannibalized. That is why we asked the platform, how can you explain the results? And basically, neither us nor platform can explain what is the nature of the results. So the learning from that is that we always need to check the final result from any automation or measurement tool versus common sense or business context. So we set up the test and we got the normal results. There was an increment. And again, we have another client. It is a real estate developer in the MENA region. And most of you probably know that there is a bottleneck with offline businesses because the data is fragmented. Different offline events, different online events, multiple touch points from a user perspective. And we met all of that as well in the beginning. And of course, there was an automation in place, but we cannot fully rely on that because we were partly blind, basically. So during our project, during our collaboration with the client, we helped to match the data and it became more clean. And as a result, with absolutely same investments, absolutely same setup, the revenue, the leads, it grew up by 30% plus. So the thing is, we need to always validate the data and make sure that the essential foundation, which is clean data, is in place.
Exactly. Yeah, there's this concept called golden data layer or golden data sets. That's very important across all automations, whether in AI or anything else. That's interesting. Do you want to move on to your second question, or do you want to?
We can have a conversation if anyone wants to add.
Anyone wants to add on top of that question?
You're more than welcome.
So just lovely to be here, everyone. My name is Jean-Paul Smalls. I'm the Chief Commercial and Marketing Officer at Emirates Hospital Group. So just on the previous question, you were talking about essentially how to make sure it's valid, you know, that you're not going down the rabbit hole when it comes to results. Okay, so I mean, in healthcare, ultimately, my job is about increasing footfall. So I need real people to actually turn up to see real doctors.
Yeah.
So, which is kind of like the ultimate acid test. Even if all of my marketing KPIs are great and the automation flows are looking like they're working, and all of this is going well because ultimately I'm there to increase leads and to increase bookings. Well, bookings is one thing. The time between someone booking an appointment and then turning up to see the doctor, a lot can happen. And ultimately, you have some other metrics like no-show rate, cancellation rate, and the quality of the appointment. Are they coming for something which is very minor, or are they coming for something which might convert into a procedure? And that part of the funnel you can only understand by actually meeting the doctors and looking at the actual clinical data on that side. Because there's no point in having lots and lots of great KPIs if the revenue at the end of it is fairly small. So that's like another balance and check in my industry. We have to really look at a physician by physician level at the quality of the patient and if they turn up.
Yeah, it seems like you've hit on something very critical, which is in the current era, when it comes to automation, do we let the computer do everything for us, or do we need to intervene? That's another question that we all need to think of whenever we're creating our own automations. Do you want to add on, Omar or Sajini?
Yes, definitely. So I think everybody today uses automation and AI like never before, right? From right when we wake up to when we sleep, we are gone to the digital area and ages and social media ages, and now it's everything about AI. Having said that, we cannot automate everything, and we've also seen this in our day-to-day life. When you give AI everything, the output, AI is as good as we are, as humans are. We have to orchestrate, we have to be the strategist, and let it do the execution bit. If we give all of it to AI, it gives generic responses, it gives responses that are not good, answers that may be completely contradictory, what is in reality with our current audience segments. So yes, as much as AI is very much important, humans are, or we at the background, we need to navigate it, otherwise things go out of hand. And I don't think AI is as ready yet. There will be a future where AI will be more in control, but at the moment, we are definitely in control.
Ivan, I've got another question for you. Do you want to talk, Omar? Sorry. All right. So, given that we've reached where we spoke about AI, as AI makes execution faster and a bit more uniform as well, what actually differentiates brands and how in building scalable engines today?
Great question. Thank you, Ihab. So I definitely agree with you that right now AI is more or less uniform. Almost any business can deploy AI solutions. Some of them are free, some of them are very easy to use. But from my perspective, what is a real barrier in terms of the growth? It's more about internal blockers rather than external. Because if we're speaking about solutions, tools, and services, there are a lot of them. And honestly, many businesses don't need more solutions. They need to work with internal barriers. Just to name a few, as I told before, as we discussed before, there is data. It should be clean. No model can work without that. And it's not something new. It was like 7-10 years ago, where you had to provide, for example, Google semi-automated strategy with right data to work properly. Secondly, that's connectivity between different parties and teams inside the business. And sometimes if you need to integrate any Martech solution, you need to interact with different departments inside the company. And very often they even don't speak to each other. They don't talk. And what we do as a partner for our clients, we highlight either a bottleneck or an opportunity. Let's say there is an opportunity to increase conversion rate from one stage to another one in the funnel, which basically lead to plus 50% revenue growth, for example. We show the road to success, and in the very end, we help our client to connect all of these parties inside the business. So basically, we facilitate that, even the areas we are not responsible for in terms of the project we're working with the client, because without that, it's not executable. And the last thing regarding internal issues is operational chaos, I would say. There are a lot of things which consume time, such as fixing integration, making data more clean, and trying to adopt a new promising solution. But the more important thing is thinking strategically what we expect as an outcome after deploying this solution. What should be the setup? Are we ready to do that or no? And in the end of the day, what differentiates brands is not only about Martech, it's about the value which is provided by the brand or a product, or at least the message which is communicated by the brand. And if we doesn't understand what consumer thinks, what he feels, why he needs our product, it doesn't make sense to deploy any AI solution. So from my perspective, there are several layers which influences the scale and the growth. Clean data, which is a foundation, connectivity between different teams inside of the business, automated processes which simplify and reduce routine operational chaos, and the clarity in terms of the value which is provided by the business product, or at least the message. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. John Paul, I'm going to move on to you. We've had a short discussion outside about the healthcare, and apparently the healthcare industry is extremely regulated, as we know. And we can't do, especially when it comes to customers, the clients, patients, in other words, their data is extremely valuable and we cannot breach privacy in a way. So how would you integrate the Martech and the Adtech side of things into the healthcare industry, ensuring scalability and growth?
Okay, so yeah, this is a very difficult thing to do. So traditionally, I've been in healthcare now for 5 years. I've worked for 3 different hospital groups. Compared to my previous industries, implementing Martech solutions like CRM or customer engagement platforms has traditionally been very difficult. One is because our core data repository is what you call EMR, or electronic medical record system. This is when you guys as patients, you go to a hospital and they register you and the doctor sees you and makes all his notes. That goes into that system. That system has all your medical data, so it's extremely secure. Yeah? You can't just let a marketing team in there to see what's wrong with people. Okay, so we don't have that kind of access. So therefore, trying to integrate that system with a CRM in a way where you maintain the data privacy is extremely difficult. However, in the last couple of years, the cost of these systems integrations is no longer cost prohibitive. It's come down. So now, for example, we call it a patient engagement platform. In your other industries, you'll probably call it a customer engagement platform. And to give you an example of how we use this kind of system for automation, it'll take a look at the whole database and it will automatically segment up our patients into major disease categories. And we use it mainly for the chronic diseases where you have to repeatedly go for different appointments. Okay, so for example, if you take the obvious one, which is diabetes, which is a big problem in this region, okay, it'll segment up the database based on diabetic patients. It will then compare that database to the ideal treatment plan for a diabetic patient, which has to come from the medical director. He has to sign off clinically. Someone with this disease, they need to see a cardiologist, they need to see an endocrinologist, they need to see a podiatrist. And here are the gaps in terms of weeks in between. These are the tests they have to do. Once we program the system with all that, then the automation will take place. Okay, it will message patients, you've seen this doctor, in a week's time, it's time for you to see this doctor. And you'll get your reminders and the rest of it. And that links in with the billing system. So now I'm in a situation where for the major disease cohorts, I can see what WhatsApps were triggered to them, how many were read, did they come for their appointment, how much money was generated from that report. Okay, so from a scalability perspective, this is quite a game changer for my industry, because it's allowed us to reduce revenue leakage, at the same time improve patient outcomes, because we're helping patients be more compliant with their treatment plan. Yeah? So people get healthier and we make more money. So
Win-win.
it's a win-win in the truest sense. And the data side of things is preserved in terms of the data privacy. So this is one modern example of how we maintain patient trust and data privacy, but still scale up on the Martech side.
And there's also one more. Yeah.
I think we look at it as one way of actually marketing. So everyone really thinks about reaching out to your patients. It's the dollar value I'm spending, and I'm making sure if I'm getting more number of patients. I worked in NHS 2011, 12. They're going through the same thing, EMR. The whole idea around collecting that data from IoT devices, from when the patient walks into, is more of a supply and demand kind of a situation. Today, if you look at a lot of MarTech transformation programs, especially in the vet industry, there's nothing in place. The reason they are going through that massive transformation is to exactly build the cohorts. And I can think about how does the pharmaceuticals brand, what diseases are we getting, and then start building up their marketing campaigns based on that. So if you look at it, there's data influx, but there's also influx of 2 or 3 verticals that's driving one single customer. So there's cross-functional selling that's happening across. The data privacy most important because you're now starting to think it's the anonymous data which you just explained about. We're not concentrating on patients. We're concentrating on the cohorts of what diseases and the patient pathways. Then it becomes much easier for me to start linking it's cross-functional, and then the tech world is just driving this whole journey.
Yeah, in terms of bringing in the other departments, from a hospital perspective, like you say, actually 20% of the revenue in the healthcare business, like a hospital, comes from pharmacy. So it's not just good enough to get the patient in to see the doctor. Okay, you've got radiology, you've got pharmacy, you've got all kinds of other revenue touch points.
Yeah.
Which now, like we're saying, with these systems, we're able to see the revenue leakage between these different operational points as well.
Then how do you, so given that, I guess in healthcare or in a hospital, there's multiple teams, whether the teams that are in the back office, just like marketing, we're all in the back office. We're not doctors that are working right in the field. Our actions are not directly affecting someone's actual livelihood and actual life versus, so how do you organize your teams in a way? So in relation to your growth stack, in order to maximize revenue and make sure that at the final analysis, both you and the client, or in this sense, the patient, are always getting the best they need to get.
Okay, it's a big question. Okay, so I'll break it down into organizational design in terms of team, and a bit about the patient journey, and I'll say processes in terms of empowering different teams. In terms of organizational design, because there's various aspects of the organization that can affect the revenue and affect the efficiency of the marketing activity. One thing I've done in all 3 hospital groups I've worked at is I've ensured the management restructured the organization to give me the call center. So the call center sits under marketing in my teams. This is because that's the first point of call for any of your activity. You run a campaign, what are they going to do? They're going to call the call center. They might book instantly, but actually the ratio of that's maybe 15%. So that allows me to line up the call center team with the marketing campaigns, with the business development team. So this is one aspect. At the call center, your marketing also doesn't just generate direct leads. It generates people with all various queries, which go to the various aspects of the organization. So we're in a process now of putting other departments onto the CRM to manage the ticketing of these kind of things, to look at the leakage. In terms of my own direct team and how we improve processes and scalability to improve the growth stack in general. One aspect of healthcare I noticed when I joined is the mentality wasn't quite like my previous industries. Previously I was in e-commerce and I was in a lot of startups. And in those industries, people are very innovative. They're always thinking, how do I get 10x? How do I get 100x? This didn't really exist in the healthcare organizations I joined. So one thing was very important to put that growth mindset into the people. Okay, we do our competitor benchmarking. My competitors are, they're making 20 videos a month, which is important in our acquisition funnel. I need 200 because we're a startup hospital. We don't have 5 years to establish a brand. We need patience now. And then, in order to empower them further, this year, for example, I introduced AI counterparts for all of my team, where I've trained the bots on specific aspects of marketing. So I have a custom GPT for SEO, one for PPC, one for social media advertising, which has been trained by me specifically with healthcare in mind. So it doesn't just churn out the generic stuff that every other hospital will be doing. So this is kind of how I help improve the growth stack on the human side, the process side, and the organizational side.
Interesting. Omar, we'll move on to you. So anyone wants to add on the organizational side? Given that I'm not sure anyone would have this as complex of an organization as the one John Paul is working in. Omar, I remember you told us once you work in one of the major, I guess, what's it called? Focus of your work is on football.
Yeah.
Football as in soccer, football.
Yeah.
Awesome. So how do you integrate, what do you do with Martech on that side?
So one of those most interesting verticals, I think, which has got a lot of revenue right now, especially with the Asia Cup in Saudi and then the 2034 World Cup. So 2 to 3 years ago, I think SPL was one of the first clients we started working on, and then we worked with a couple of more football clubs. Events will get you an attention, but to keep the continuous engagement with your fans, you need the Martech. You need that Martech automation. So if you look at Martech today, it's really become that backbone of how do you interact with customer, but also make sure that it has heavy audience segmentations that you build it up. So in the football, I think I possibly can take one of the 4 top football clubs of PIF that we're working with. One, today they already have a massive campaign around out of home. They understand how the radio, TV works, how does the streaming channels, but they don't really understand how do you reach digitally and how does every digital touch point gets captured. So in our framework, what we have started doing is membership plays a massive role. So from a strategy perspective, you need to understand how you're going to fill those stadiums, how you're going to reach these fans. One form of that is digitally on the website, people buying those tickets. But from an app perspective, you want every touch point to be captured from the moment they enter the stadium. The AI actually looking up their images and being able to show push notifications, taking that data and building offers for them, and then using that data in order to think about the year-round campaigns. What are you going to do? There's a massive e-merchandising. You've got star players who have their t-shirts, they have signed t-shirts, you're getting dinners with them. So there's a lot of data that's sitting in these pockets where you need to think about how do you bring all this together. So what my selling point to the stadiums is, it's not driven by us, but it's driven by the governance that is set up by the ministries there. They need you to think about how do you embed that culture. Now, to embed that culture, you need to make sure every digital touch point plus every fan engagement is being captured. So as I said, it starts with us developing those web and app, but really taking them through that journey where there's a massive data residency issue in Saudi, you can't really share that data, understanding the framework, how data governance work, putting that into an environment that every time you get an opportunity of someone searching for their star player or someone actually logging on an app or the website, you always have personalized offers. And this is only going to happen when you have a proper CDP and an AI driving that personalization on the campaigns. Again, sounds simple, but you need a North Star to be built up. You're dealing with fans across globally. So what we start doing right now is the insight part, which I think you just thrown upon. There's a market research angle that you need to start thinking about in Martech, which we never have explored. When you run campaigns, you are actually thinking about one or two previous campaigns and building your campaign methodology on that one. So what we've done is with the football clubs is exploring globally how can you change the fan index from where they are right now to making sure they become loyalty. So loyalty comes a big part into it. The whole story is more about that digital transformation. That's why when I go and talk about CXM, it's not just about Martech. It's about those web and app. It's about that continuous journey that they're being a part of. How do you capture that in a data governance firm? How do you capture their data and make sure there are cohorts and learnings that you're building on the floor? So yesterday I was at one of the football events, WFS. I was really surprised that now the fan index is going to be measured more like cryptos and decentralized. Someone's taking that loyalty data and giving us an opportunity to go and buy a token of that club. So it's becoming very commercial. Imagine that today clubs have their own apps, but imagine you building up an exchange which has got all the clubs listed, and a fan is able to buy a part of that token, very much supply and demand. And the more social buzz is around that club, the market value of that keeps on increasing. So you can see there's a commerce that's coming in, there's exchanges that's coming in. The Martechs really become that backbone of this entire thing of how the data collection plays an important role.
That sounds interesting. Probably have a side question. When it comes to the token, is it similar to how so there's this company called Bricken where they tokenize real estate basically, and then instead of you investing in an entire building, you invest in a simple token. 3 years down the line, if you spent $100, that's what $110. Let's say it's 10% per annum, $130, $133. Is it the same thing with
It is
clubs as well?
similar.
Or?
Well, what they do is, so they have it for all the markets, and they release out certain number of tokens. Fans come in, they purchase those tokens. Some percentage of that value goes to clubs because they are saying, okay, we are fine to actually allow this token on our name. And then there is exactly the same concept of supply and demand. The more demand, and how does the demand get really valued is the more social buzz around that club. So for example, Al Hilal, they went and played the Club World Cup. They were in the semifinal. Twitter, they rocketed up. So in that case, your coin would be rocketing up. So it's all about giving the fans the value today. You're waiting for the clubs to give them offers, but imagine a fan being loyal to you and they're still making money. And that's only going to happen with these systems on the back end.
I'm pretty sure a CDP on that end would definitely help a lot. You do have a CDP already installed, or
so
given all the data, because like the data processing and storage alone of that is going to be.
It's a bit old school there. Because of the data residency issues, even if you look at NEOM, it took them a long time to actually look at Salesforce or Adobe solutions. The reason is the data had to be sitting in. So they're a bit old school. They're still trying to use Synapse Azure, where they have the native algorithms building cohorts for them. And then on top end, we use Braze to actually launch the campaigns. That's how we're managing it.
That sounds very interesting.
It's old school, but I think they'll come of age, especially with the CDPs now having earlier they were on AWS, now they are actually launching on GCP. I personally, if you ask me, I'm a fan of composable CDPs because I still feel that we don't really have solid use cases on CDPs. Composable CDP is where you're building that data lake on the go, thinking about how many cohorts can you build, then start collating that data as you go along. Maybe 2 to 3 years down the line, when you've got good use cases, then a CDP like a Bloomreach really plays an important role. Until that, it's a very experimentational. And the way you positioned it, it's more about orchestration of that data. That is a big game. How soon can you do and how dynamically can you reach the customer? That's where you're making money, rather than actually building up the CDP actually giving you value in the early stages.
Specifically in the football industry, given that it's event-based, like the actual club performs at certain events throughout the year, but then the entire time they're training, they're doing other merchandise, they're doing sponsorship and stuff. So keeping the user engaged and understanding the user and their behavior and understanding what they like and dislike, etc. It's very important for that.
It's very surprising. In UK, where I worked with Sarah Sense, this was exactly the concept. But remember, those have digitally scaled. The clubs like in Saudi have a massive digital learning to have, and they don't even have systems in place. So one of the key things for the ministry out there is to think about getting their membership platforms ready. How many people can they think about onboarding on that? Because then that gives them an idea of how much stadiums are we going to fill up? What is my tiering on membership? That level of data, then there is a CDP. In UK, the season tickets, you barely will get it. You have to really pre-book. So for them, exactly to your point, I'm going to take my son as well. So I've booked my tickets for the whole season. When Saudi, you'd be very surprised, the ticketing system is WeBook and the inventory sits with WeBook. So there's a massive gap. So what clubs are trying to do right now, get the memberships platform sorted and then integrate the inventory onto that. So the purchasing will happen through them rather than the ticketing system.
And that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's nice. I'm going to move on to Sajini. And this is something that what Omar was already mentioning as well, and you as well mentioned when we first earlier spoke about funnels. So at the moment, most brands have a disconnected funnel and they don't think as much about, right, I want to have the market be more aware of us and then get more acquisitions and then keep them and retain them. If they want to cancel, keep them and retain them. And if they do cancel, retarget in order to gain more revenue from them. So how do you go about integrating the entire funnel and how do you go about integrating Martech and Adtech into and automations in that so that you produce the best personalized user experience?
Thank you for this question. So I technically don't look at funnels as a different sequence of different stages. Instead, we in CoinMENA, what we try to do is build a growth flywheel. How we do it is not following what usual brands do. What do usual brands do? They follow something called as a bucket brigade system, right? So marketing fills top with leads and so on. They pass it to sales. Sales pass it to CS to product, and so on. And with every handover, they consider this as a success metric. They consider this as a win. But is this the right way to do it? I highly doubt, because here we are treating the customer as a transaction, not as an asset. What we try to do is integrate it completely so that it becomes compounding in its effect. Now, how we do it is through three methods. Firstly and foremostly, the base. There is, at least in crypto, in CoinMENA, we cannot fundamentally exist without data and a proper architecture. So when we say architecture and data, it doesn't mean that we are encroaching into the privacy, because we're highly regulated, which means that we have limitations on how much visibility of data we have. That being said, we still have to have fundamentals sorted so that we do not reach out to the wrong audiences. So even when the architecture, we have three components. So first being the cost data, right? As all marketers, we look at the cost aspect, the CAC, the source of the campaign, campaign intent, source channel, etc. Then comes on top of it the behavioral data, so which is very important these days. It's not important that you just get a lot of customers. We actually need to know what our customers are doing. Are they really progressing? Have they completed their KYC? Have they done their first deposit, second trade? Have they left us already? We should know that, right? And then on top of that comes the value data, which is the customer lifetime value. Now, why this is very important is gone are the days where you just acquire a customer, fill in the volumes, and then that's it, like that's over. No. Today we talk of lifetime value, where revenue is generated over a couple of days, months, even years, depending on what industry it is, right? So for us, probably it takes us a couple of months to get back our ROAS at this point, which is very fundamental, which is very, very needed at this point to understand the data, interpret it. And now when we combine all these three together, that's the cost, the behavior, and the value, we combine it and call it something known as the golden data, right? So after getting all of this data, what do we do with it? That comes to the second fundamental aspect of it, which is the behavioral automation, right? So say we have customers, and I think all of us sitting here would have interacted with some sort of a banking or fintech app. Let's take this example as CoinMENA for now, right? My app. So when you, in the simplest example is when you start, getting into the customer journey, you install the app, and what do you do next? You put in the email ID, phone number, and then that's easy, okay, that's done. And then comes the most challenging step, which is your KYC documentation. Now, here is where we kind of understand the intent, right? A heavily intent-oriented customer would rather complete the KYC very quickly. Somebody also with that intent might complete it or may not complete it because that person may not have the right documents at that time, might forget it and so on. So what do we do there? Do we keep nudging the customer? Do we shove it all to the customer service, call these 100 customers 1,000 times, make them our customers? No. So that is where we use AI to interpret based on past data, which are our most valuable customers, and so on. And then we take these to feed it back into acquisition. So in the past, what we used to do is we take acquisition and that feeds into retention. Right now, we are in the reverse engineering, right? We take the retention, we see best cohorts of customers, and then we send it via APIs back to our ad engines to get our best kind of customers, right, for lookalike modeling. And of course, the third part, and which is the most fundamental and most important part, is the storytelling. So across CoinMENA, we have like 3 fundamental rules or communication guidelines that we go ahead with, which we are very simple, we are secure, that is, we are regulated by VARA and CBB license, and we are very empowering. Our communications are very educative in nature. And that goes across the brand, be it digital, social, PR, anything. So this is what we do together, to tie together, to make it into a growth flywheel, making it compounding in effect, than just a linear progression from one stage to another. Thank you.
There's also something important. I guess this is something for all of us to answer. We're going to start with you, which is how do you balance between personalizing and generalizing when you're retargeting or taking back the retention to acquisition? Sometimes due to this increase in need for privacy and data, people are more likely now hating on the personalized ads. So if you've gone to Amazon and you saw whatever you saw, a book, and then you went back on Google and you saw it on Google Display, the exact same book, you know that they're tracking you. So that, since people are more aware of privacy, how do you balance personalization of ads or marketing versus showcasing a general message about your own company, and keeping in mind like the final output must be either increasing customer loyalty if they're recurring customers or getting more people?
Yes, that's quite a very challenging question, especially because we are heavily regulated. Now, every communication that goes out from our company or CoinMENA passes through compliance. We cannot communicate anything without compliance intervening, or they've given us the list of words. For instance, like we're not supposed to use words like opportunity or chance. Okay, here's your chance to win something. No, you can't use those words. So then how do you personalize? And gone are the days where I say, okay, dear Sajini or dear Radhika, here, open your app, log in now. That's really boring. That feels very encroaching and very, attacking your privacy. Then again, last week, I think I bought about 3 to 4 beauty products from Instagram, right? Social selling is becoming so popular. So what we're trying to say is we don't really need to get into a lot of privacy, like he rightly mentioned. If you have the right kind of cohorts, building personas surrounding it, and having the AI fed with these algorithms will actually suggest and recommend likelihood of products rather than, being too direct and saying that, what, Sajini, you did not order yesterday, try ordering again today. No, that may or may not work. Some people like it, but most people find this as a privacy, encroachment. So yeah, I think we use AI, we need to feed it. And again, content becomes very, very important here on how you use the content, as also personalization without being too encroaching.
I'll shift the game a little. See, it's not just Martech. It's also the Adtech side of thing. If you look at today, the advertising programmatic is a massive, massive part of it. And if you ask someone who's in Martech, they are going to give you an answer saying that personalization, I'm doing it based on the inventory and the cohorts. There's nothing dynamic in nature about that, because I'm pre-thinking about something which the customers might think. The customers are too different in nature nowadays. So I personally feel, and I was having a conversation with someone in Singapore who's got a startup right now, which looks at dynamically someone approaching, and an SSP inventory is not pre-buying those billing things. You're not actually pre-buying those inventory. On the fly, you'll have programmatic shoot out exactly that from a different publisher. So you're not doing pre-deal. It's a bit difficult to understand, but I think there has to be a bit of a bridge between programmatic from an Adtech perspective and the Martech. That technology gap today is massive. So our personalizations, though we say are dynamic in nature, they're not. You're pre-thinking about it. And the way it's changing, it's too fast in an industry like this. So I don't think I'm answering your question, but I think there's a way forward to think about what is personalization. Is it real time or is it near real time? To my knowledge, it's still too near. It's not real time. It's kind of 4 to 5 hour lags. And with the customers changing so often, we need to think about that backbone having more AI components into it. You need to have an AI on your DMP. You need to have an AI on SSP. And that collaboration together will give you the real time. It's too difficult topic, but maybe.
That also adds like a lot of complexity. If you're having multiple AIs, that means, so that's one of those feedback loops. The more you want to personalize now, the more AI you want to add, but then customer behavior continues to change, and then you end up with infinite AIs. So it's a fit for thought.
I'll just add a little bit on personalization, and especially hyper-personalization in my industry. So especially when it comes to retargeting. Okay, healthcare has a lot of restrictions on retargeting. It's almost not allowed, to be honest, for good reason. And I'll give you an example. So, October was Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So I hope all the ladies in the audience did all the screening. And November was Men's Health Awareness Month, which is mainly about prostate cancer. Now, I can run adverts, I can run retargeting adverts, I can hyper-personalize general screening adverts, which might look at a cohort of women over 40 years old and recommend, hey, come and get your mammogram, here's our package. Okay? Not too many issues with that. If I was to go one step further than this, though, I can target you based on the fact that you have cancer, maybe you haven't returned to the hospital, and you should see an oncologist. Now, that might be a good thing for you, but it's way too personalized. Actually, it will work against me. One is you'd never be able to run an ad like that anyway, because of the restrictions in healthcare. But two, even if you could, because there are situations where you can hyper-personalize, you will completely you'll destroy the trust with your patients, because it's just too intrusive. It's too personalized. So we have this balance in healthcare where, people have given you their data and you have to have a lot of trust and a lot of responsibility when it comes to how you use it. So we have a lot of restrictions when it comes to especially retargeting. Custom audiences are banned on some platforms. Match audiences, you can't actually make them. So there's a lot of responsibility that goes into the creation of this kind of retargeting in my industry.
Ivan.
Yeah, I'd like to add something here. From my perspective, if we're speaking about retargeting, in the majority of the cases for a specific user, it's very difficult to understand what is the origin of the data, who sold it, who bought it. Probably it's not the brand itself, it's some DMP data which was sold to another DMP provider, which was bought by a platform, and that's the result of why ad appeared. So basically, I think that it's important to find the balance, but from user perspective, it's very difficult to understand why a user sees this ad, because quality and I would say accuracy of retargeting is not even close to 100%.
True. Yes.
Yeah, so I agree with what John Paul was saying. There should be a fine line between personalization and generalization. And that's when it really works well. So, for instance, in our case, where we deal with crypto and it's very sensitive, we cannot really, get hyper personalized and say that, listen, dear customer, you traded, say, Ethereum last week. Why don't you try something else? However, this is where we incorporate AI and allow it to predict the behavior, feed in these data so that the communication becomes slightly generalized and doesn't feel it's too encroaching, especially in regulated sectors like hospitals and crypto exchanges. Thank you.
Quick
All right.
question. Now the banking is overtaking this and they're trying to integrate you guys into this thing. How do I really think about someone with, what does your cohort think? Are you going to go after people's salary ranges, or is it just about the behavior? You would in the future would want people to use your exchanges rather than the bank exchanges, right? So, sorry, I'm taking your time, but I just
If you
wanted
only
to
can
know
consider it.
I want you to know what's a sort of a kind of an area which you think you want to target.
Excellent question. I was just telling somebody in the audience just a while ago that the banks are, moving towards crypto. We have AE coin right now and so on, right? I don't consider this as a threat. I'm glad that we thought of it long back and we put the foundations just like how banking did like 50, 100 years ago. We definitely have our advantages as opposed to, say, traditional or neo banks accepting crypto. So we're not going to run after most customers because we've established a brand name. We know the trade well. And as opposed to retail, we are, I don't know how much everybody would know, but majority of our revenue comes from B2B as opposed to B2C. It's through stable coins, it's through companies and merchants because we give a lot of advantages compared to banks. So that's where our core focus is. And I think in the near future, most of the crypto exchanges are going to be focused there as opposed to the big exchanges, which is B2C. And this is where banks are also trying to tap in. It will take them a while. So, yeah.
All right. I guess let's hear some questions from the audience.
All right. Okay. Super.
Hi there. My name's James, and I've got a question. I think Omar, you might touch on it a little bit, which is around, Martech and Adtech and automotive have, been able to allow brands to segment and personalize at a much bigger scale than they've done before. And I'm wondering, with new technology, new AI, machine learning, and are you starting to see people reach the kind of North Star of a hyper personalization or one-to-one personalization at all within the brands or clients you work with?
Sorry, what was your question? You just summarized everything. So what was the question?
The question was, have you started to see brands or clients that you work with reach that kind of North Star where they're starting to personalize on a one-to-one or hyper-personalization?
Not in MENA, honestly. If I have to be very honest, I think MENA has not really gone to the North Star. We are, maybe the reason of the industries that come in, we are too quick on thinking about our loyalty with the customers. We have short campaigns. We really want to try and win in a short space of time. That's why if you look at the seasonality there, especially with retail, there's so many events, like there's a White Friday, there's a Black Friday. So to even think about investing on the technology, it's a very pacey world. And I think the reason is a lot of decision making is with the CMOs rather than CTOs. So personally, if you ask me how we're driving this, I'm going to be, I directly have a chat with the CTO of thinking about how a roadmap needs to develop. And then we get the buy-in. So that C-level person can then push it to the CMO. What's playing a bigger role here is there are lots of boutique products that are coming out right now, which are filling this gap. And I think the industry here in MENA is pacey to actually have that AI driving the Adtech to the Martech gap compared to UK, because UK is about standardization and North Star. So to answer that question, I feel the technology is driven by the small boutique players in order to fill this gap, and there is a less of buying from the bigger brands. So to conquer this, I think we need to have two parallel projects running in. Like JP spoke about, I've got a call center sitting with mine. And the reason that is, he wants the business to see the value of what Martech drives, but also try and think in the future, you controlling the budget, I'm guessing, of both those departments to make sure there's a better technology rollout. So to answer that short, the budgets are sitting across on the table. It has to be a single pot for us to really think of that North Star.
Thank you.
There's also this difference in Almina, as you're mentioning, there's this probably a few hundred years ago, 500 years ago in Europe, where the scientific revolution happened, and then people or the entire industry that came out with this focus on scientific exploration of things, and which translated into the business world and translated into the world of data, and that's where the entire AI world came from. The MENA region is still trying to catch up to everything that's happening on that front. So it's not a first world country. It's barely. Dubai is great in the MENA region. Saudi is picking up as well. But if you look at the other countries, they barely have electricity for like 6 hours a day. That in and of itself, that fundamental change has set us back a bit. But lots of people, especially big players, will definitely are starting to become more and more invested in actually utilizing machine learning models into personalization, utilizing machine learning models into prediction, into, as you were mentioning a few moments ago, into actually predicting which are of these segments, of these 100, are most likely to convert or to be retained without me being too pushy or being too invasive. So that's a fundamental difference that we need to take into account.
And also, I think the way the customers interact today, SEO is a change game. Sometimes people who are SEO in the room might hate me, because SEO today is so different. I will probably be going into an entirely different platform, which has nothing related to people going and advertising on that platform, with ChatGPT or Gemini forming the basis of me making a decision of which crypto platform do I end up using, which school do I send my son to, and it's all driven by AI. So when you start thinking about Martech solving all the challenges, it is not. It's going to be the world of the SEO tech behind, is the world of Adtech that needs to be still brought on. We all are finding it's so difficult to latch on to one customer because there are too many crypto brands out there, there are too many exchanges out there. So it's a bit of a difficult ecosystem, which is RGB, where you're thinking, what is the touch point which I need to not miss out?
All right.
I think I may have to differ in that view slightly, because in my previous organization, they set up an entire, and based out of Dubai, set up an entire department for AI. So Dubai, yes, is slightly late, but it's catching up very soon. And SEO people, again, really sorry, but SEO is dead, right? So nobody looks at SEO anymore. We're all going on GEO, and we're relying completely on AI. And we have tools in the Martech to understand what are the most, the top questions asked about my brand, about my industry, about SEO across different platforms, generative engines across, and then we curate content and so on, so that we, get on top. So this is something we are building at CoinMENA. We're not there yet, but that's something we're building so that our names, get on top, and SEO is just one fraction of GEO, AIO, and so on. There's a lot happening, and I think we're getting there.
Any more questions from the audience?
So, okay.
I just want to say, because on the SEO is dead topic. My industry is very demand-led, okay? No one goes to a doctor or hospital for fun, for entertainment. They go there because there's a very definitive need. So SEO is still one of the key acquisition drivers for me. But obviously the game has changed a bit. And, if you have strong SEO, what we've seen for ourselves, then our GEO has also been quite strong. Okay? We've had to adapt the content on our website quite aggressively. Because probably 5 to 8% of my patients across a fragmented funnel now, because they're not all coming directly to our website. They might find the doctors individually on directory sites, on their own websites. So I actually support doctors promoting themselves, because ultimately I get the patient. So I've embraced this fragmentation, like I'm not being greedy with the SEO, so to speak. But yeah, so ChatGPT and the like are probably also generating now maybe 5% of my new patients. And that proportion will only increase.
All right. So I know that this is a never-ending topic. So we are running short of time. So for this topic. So can we have a big round of applause for all the panelists joined for the wonderful topic? So the combination of marketing, advertising, and technology. So it has been a very interactive session. So to all the participants, you can take the questions offline with him, because we are also running short and we have to catch up with the next session. So thank you. Thanks Sajini, Omar, Jian, Ivan and Ihab for, moderating a wonderful session. So can you please all come together for a group fee and for taking the memories for the 6 DMAT. So can we have a big round of applause for the wonderful session?